The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is brought to you by Clinica Sierra Vista.
Welcome back to the 17 News at Sunrise podcast, where we share your news on your schedule.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Sunrise.
And good morning to you. Thanks for waking up with us here at 5 a.m. I'm Maddie Jansen alongside Alex Fisher. Breaking news overnight, a man is dead after crashing on Highway 58. The crash happened around 10:30 p.m. BPD says the man was driving down South Union Avenue when he tried to get on Highway 58, but drove down an embankment and into the center median. You can see the car smashed into the center median there, right there. That man was taken to a local hospital, but he later died. BPD says alcohol appears to be a factor in this crash. That man's identity has not been released.
In your Health Watch this morning, the United States has officially declared monkeypox a public health emergency. The Biden administration made the announcement early yesterday afternoon, more than a week after the head of the World Health Organization said the outbreak qualifies as a global emergency. The announcement allows the federal government to increase their spending to target the outbreak, which has already infected more than 6,600 Americans. The Biden administration says it has made more than 1.1 million vaccine doses available, with capacity for 80,000 tests every week. The last time the U.S. declared a public health emergency was in response to COVID-19. That was in January 2020.
Meantime, to help mitigate the spread of the virus here in Kern, local health officials are hosting a monkeypox vaccination event this Sunday. Appointments for Sunday's event filled up rather quickly, but the next event is scheduled for Saturday, August 13th at 10 a.m. You can visit kernpublichealth.com/monkeypox for the most up-to-date information. The vaccines are free, but recipients must be at least 18 years old to get one.
In sports news this morning, the 2022 NFL preseason kicked off last night with both rain and there was a lot going on in Vegas. And Mother Nature was making an appearance as rain delayed this game between the Raiders and the Jacksonville Jaguars for about 40 minutes. Coming off a surprise playoff appearance with the addition of a new hotshot head coach and the acquisitions of All-Pros Devontae Adams and Chandler Jones, the Raiders are one of the most hyped teams entering this season. And Bakersfield native Derek Carr, as well as most of the first stringers, sat out of this game. The Raiders ended up beating the Jags 27-11.
Also in sports, the Dodgers will continue to honor the life and legacy of the great Vin Scully. Before the team takes on the Padres tonight, they will hold a ceremony in tribute to Vinny. It's set to begin at 6:30 p.m. and the Dodgers are asking fans to be in their seats before 6:30. If you can't make it to the game, the ceremony will be broadcast ahead of tonight's game.
Women who accused quarterback Deshaun Watson of sexual misconduct are calling on NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell to give the Cleveland Browns quarterback a harsher punishment. Watson has been sued by 25 women alleging sexual misconduct. Judge Sue Robinson issued a 6-game suspension as a result of findings from her investigation. In her 16-page report, Robinson described Watson's behavior as more egregious than any before reviewed by the NFL. The NFL has already announced that it has plans to appeal the ruling, hoping for harsher punishment. Attorney Tony Busby and one of Watson's accusers, Ashley Solis, delivered a message to the commissioner.
What do the actions of the NFL say to little girls who have suffered at the hands of someone perceived to have power? That it's not a big deal? That they don't care?
Mr. Goodell, what will you do? It's never too late to do the right thing. And that's what these women and those watching are expecting.
2 Texas grand juries declined to indict Watson on criminal charges as a result of those accusations. Watson has publicly maintained his innocence throughout this process.
5:06 is your time now in wildfire news. Mandatory evacuation orders have been lifted this morning after a dangerous brush fire broke out in Santa Clarita. The railroad fire broke out just before 4 yesterday afternoon, and in a matter of minutes, it was burning within feet of some homes. Businesses on Soledad Canyon Road were also forced to evacuate. Flames and smoke could be seen for miles. Crews were able to quickly stop the forward progress at about 20 acres.
And the deadly McKinney fire burning in Siskiyou County is still only 10% contained. At least 4 people have died in this blaze. Flames have burned nearly 59,000 acres. Some evacuation orders have been downgraded to warnings, but there are still several hotspots firefighters are working to put out.
The Mariposa Grove of giant sequoias at Yosemite National Park has officially reopened, and the Grove shuttle is back in operation. This comes as firefighters gained control of the Washburn fire, now 97% contained. Some areas of the park will stay closed, including the Washburn Trail, the western portion of the Perimeter Trail, and the trail from Mariposa Grove toward Wawona.
Now to a violent and fiery crash in Los Angeles where 6 people were killed, and it was all caught on camera. The crash happened just a few miles from LAX, and the video is heartbreaking. You can see a car speed through an intersection on a red light and slam into several other cars, causing a small explosion. About 7 vehicles were either damaged or destroyed in this crash. Officials say 6 people were killed, including a baby and a pregnant woman. 8 people were taken to the hospital. 6 children and 2 adults suffered minor injuries, according to authorities. Other people in the area pumping gas at nearby gas stations say they actually had to take cover from flying debris from this crash. CHP says the driver who caused the collision was a 40-year-old woman and survived. Officers say she was driving a Mercedes at the time of the crash and drove through the intersection at a speed of at least 60 miles per hour.
Also across the state, there could be more toxic chemicals off the Southern California shore than previously thought. Regulators with the Environmental Protection Agency say DDT waste was dumped into the ocean off Catalina Island decades ago by the nation's largest manufacturer of the acid. They determined the acid, which was a pesticide so powerful it poisoned birds and fish, was not contained in hundreds of thousands of sealed barrels. California and the EPA have allocated more than $11 million to address the issue.
And be sure to check this out, the vibrant new mural the next time you're at the corner of Hollywood and Vine. It pays tribute to Hollywood legends, including Judy Garland and several others. It also includes stars that symbolize the city's gritty and underground sides. And you don't have to look too hard to notice nods to LA as a center for civil rights, gay activism, skateboard graffiti, street culture, and more.
Your time is 5:34. And 17 News is your local election headquarters. A sales tax meeting scheduled for last night was canceled due to a power outage, but several more are planned for the near future. Local leaders are urging current voters to approve the proposed 1-cent sales tax. 17's Moses Small has more.
The County Board of Supervisors voted last month to put a proposed sales tax increase on the November ballot. If approved by voters with a simple majority, the sales tax in unincorporated parts of the county would rise from 7.25% to 8.25%.
What this measure would do is would actually establish about $54 million annually to our general fund, and that would all stay local. So not only would that be benefiting our public safety, but it would also be helping combat homelessness and make sure to stimulate job growth.
Local leaders argue the county needs the extra cash.
I have the crime lab that I have to fund and employ people in the crime lab.
It's shocking to know that we have 125 vacant deputy positions, 125 detention deputies vacant, have a jail sitting empty.
This comes as inflation puts pressure on many people around the county, already squeezing to get by.
It's absurd because California pays the highest taxes of all of the United States, and I just don't understand how they expect people to make it.
Voters will pass or fail the measure on November 8th. In Bakersfield, Moses Small, 17 News.
County leaders plan to hold 2 workshops a week to drum up support for the sales tax proposal. The next one's set for Monday at the Kern River Veterans and Senior Building in Lake Isabella. Making news around the world, Beijing has announced it is cutting off high-level cooperation with the United States in several key areas, including military communications and crime prevention. The announcement comes in the wake of Speaker Nancy Pelosi's controversial stop in Taiwan during her trip to Asia this week. The U.S. government assured China that Pelosi's visit signaled no changes to the United States policies toward Taiwan and China. However, Chinese leaders strongly oppose the move and will now halt communication with theater leaders of the Chinese and U.S. militaries. They are also suspending cooperation on the repatriation of illegal immigrants, combating transnational crimes, and climate change talks. Beijing also leveled sanctions against Nancy Pelosi personally for her visit to Taiwan.
Now to news from across the nation this morning, and a Texas jury has found that conspiracy theorist Alex Jones must pay more than $4 million to the family of a boy killed in the 2012 Sandy Hook massacre. The family of 6-year-old Jesse Lewis filed a defamation suit against Jones over his claims that the mass shooting that claimed the lives of 20 children and 6 adults was a hoax. In the second phase of the civil trial, jurors will now consider how much Jones must pay the Lewis family in punitive damages.
An apparent lightning strike near the White House last night sent 4 people to the hospital in critical condition. It happened as storms rolled through our nation's capital, the strike hitting at Lafayette Park across the street from the White House. Witnesses described the scene as chaotic, with people and emergency crews rushing to find cover and then helping the injured. The victims, 2 men and 2 women, suffered injuries described as life-threatening. All right, your time's 5:48. This summer, we've been talking about a noteworthy milestone in the city's history, the 70th anniversary of the 1952 earthquake. Bakersfield lost some distinctive architecture in that earthquake, and especially in the August 22nd aftershock. Among the historic buildings that survived intact, however, is a small, oddball structure which is celebrating a significant birthday of its own. It's 75th. With another installment in the series Where We Live, Robert Price has the story of the Big Shoe.
It's Bakersfield's little slice of Disneyland right here on Chester Avenue. It's the Big Shoe, and it's been here now for 75 years.
There is an old man who works in the shoe. He has dozens of repair jobs, but he knows what to do. He'll give them some stitching, he'll give them some glue, he'll expertly fix them, then give an interview.
Listen, I've been here in the shoe for 20 years, October 2nd, 2002.
Well, he's not that old, but there is a little more gray in his beard than when Felipe Torres reopened the unusual landmark years ago. The oddity was built at 10th and Chester in 1947 by Chester Deschwanden and operated by his son, Donald Deschwanden, for 40 years until Donald's death. It was vacant for 10 years, unclaimed shoes piled against the front windows, about where the big toe would be, until Solomon Alvera bought it and brought in Torres, an experienced cobbler, to run the place. The change of ownership called for a new name. But what?
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a big shoe.
Well, of course, the Big Shoe.
I feel proud to be here, and since I came to Bakersfield, I always saw the shoe and would say, oh, now I'm here.
The shop, 25 feet tall at its peak and 32 feet long, making it roughly a size 768, rests on a black sole over a reddish base. 3-inch thick ropes, painted black, serve as its shoelaces. The Big Shoe has a semi-glorious history in commercial advertising. In 1989, the building was used in a national campaign promoting DuPont carpeting. And it has turned up in U.S. News and World Report, Time, Newsweek, Fortune, People, Smithsonian Magazine, Architectural Digest, The Wall Street Journal, and USA Today, among other publications. It's been on broadcast networks and in books about unusual buildings.
Well, people come in and say, what do you do here? Oh, I sell enchiladas or something like that, but no, it's a shoe repair shop. What else could it be?
The Big Shoe has itself needed repairs over the years. It needed a new coat of polish after someone added an unauthorized Nike swoosh, and more serious work after a driver veered off Chester Avenue and took a gouge out of its side.
That's gonna be the only shoe in my life, probably, and my experience, that I cannot fix.
But through it all, the Big Shoe has maintained its dignity, to the extent a giant shoe can appear dignified.
Felipe Torres has been here for 20 of the 75 years that the Big Shoe has been here on Chester Avenue, and he's not leaving anytime soon. He says any old shoe can always be repaired. At the Big Shoe, Robert Price, 17 News.
I love that building, so I'm glad to know the history of it.
Yeah, and I remember as a kid driving by that shoe and always being like, I thought it was hilarious. A big shoe, you know?
The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is a production of KGET and Nexstar Media Group. For more on all of the headlines in today's show, head to kget.com.